Hi and welcome back to our channel. My name is Cynthia Wakio, the Communication and Events Manager at Corporate Staffing Services. We're going to be looking at employment contracts and the different types of employment contracts there are and the pros and cons of each. Thank you, and thank you for joining me for minutes.
Thank you, Cynthia.
So when we're talking about employment contracts, how many types are there in Kenya specifically?
Yeah. So when you talk about employment contracts, mainly there are two types. So the first one, and which many people are familiar with, is what we call open-ended contract. So here the contract is the staff can work for you or with you as long as possible, maybe until retirement age, if you have that in your policy. So the second one is now what we call the fixed-term contract. So what do we mean by fixed-term contract? So fixed-term means there's a time aspect. So you hire this person, they work for you for 3 months, 6 months, or even a year. So it means now, at the expiry of that time, the contract is no longer valid. And you either have to issue them a new contract or part ways. So in a nutshell, those are the two main types of contract. Yeah. And then something to add when it comes to the employment contract. So the law is quite specific that if you are hiring someone for more than 2 months, then you need to issue them with a contract.
With the two contracts you've mentioned, are there any current developments around these contracts?
Yes, there are two court rulings that were done in the space of the last 12 months. So number one, and this touches on termination. So before 2022, if you hire someone on contract and they're on probation for the first 3 months or the maximum 6 months, then you didn't have to give them a reason for not confirming them. However, the courts ruled that it's quite unfair because someone has left their job, they've come, they've given it their best, and then at the end of the whatever period of time you've given them, you tell them, Cynthia, no, we are not confirming you and there's no reason. Yeah, so that's number one. The second one is that when it comes to fixed-term contracts, there's no obligation for an employer to continue the relationship upon expiry of that contract. So what do I mean? If, for example, now you are hired at Corporate Staffing the way you are hired and it's a contract up to 31st December, you are the Events and Communication Manager, come 1st of January, then you can't force Corporate Staffing to continue. And even if I terminate that contract, and by the way, it's not even me who will be terminating, the contract will be terminated by time, and then I hire someone else. You can't come and say you've been discriminated or such things. So there's an employee who went to court based on the fact that they had been on contract, the same job. I think the contract had been renewed several times. Yeah. So now when the employer did not renew or give them a new contract, so they went to the court and said, oh, they had a legitimate expectation that they've been at this job, they've been performing, no issues, so why were they given? So the court said no, for any time-based contract, fixed-time contracts, so they end with the time. So the employer then can do whatever they want. Yes. Yeah. However, also, there's a caveat for the employer. So how you word your contract is very important. So for example, if I give you a contract and then I indicate that, oh, this contract can be renewed upon good performance. So you are creating expectations. So the best practice for both parties is I give you a contract. If I know it's for a specific period of time, 3 months or 6 months, I just indicate that. So I don't add words like renewal, can be renewed, or anything like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah. So let's look at the pros and cons for this employment contracts. Yeah.
So when it comes to the open-ended contracts, obviously, when you look at it from the employer perspective, it can be costly, especially when it comes to termination. So whether you're terminating someone on performance, you have to take them through a whole process. If you are terminating someone on account of redundancy, there's an amount you have to pay. So compared to fixed term, if, for example, Cynthia, again, you are hired, it's expiring 31st December, but there's not much to do in November and December. So I can just let the contract expire without, going through the motions of terminating the contract, which maybe I'll be forced to pay something. So I'll just make sure it expires with time. However, when it also now comes to the fixed time contract, so there's a bit of a disadvantage because some of the positions we recruit for, I don't see an MD coming to work just for a year. So because it doesn't guarantee me Yeah, so employers, they want to feel safe, they want to feel secure, they want to have a form of continuity. So that's one of the issues you find with a fixed term contract. Yeah. So you may not be able to attract the best talent if you give them a fixed term contract and it's not the norm in the industry or sector. Yeah. However, some sectors or industry, it's given that based on the nature of the job, for example, if it's NGO, they rely on donor funding, so every year they have to fundraise. So it's given. Even the employee understands, oh, I'm working for 1 year contract. It's possible I may not have this job next year.
Yes.
And it just comes with the territory. Yeah. However, you can't come manufacturing, I'm a HR, you want to give me 1 year contract, then you may find that might come in the way of you attracting the right talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up on this topic, what advice would you give employers in regards to employment contracts?
So there are two things I would want to emphasize. Number one is that HR is becoming a critical part of the organization. And when it comes to contract, it's all about compliance. Number one, how are your contracts worded? Every day I meet employers who are in problems because of the way they worded their contracts. And they make a mistake, and in terms of benefits, and the employee, maybe at the time of exit or even during the course of their work, I mean, they hold you to account because you are the one who gave them this document.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's number one. So number two, it's also that it's good to seek an expert. So if you have a HR professional in your firm, it's all good. But if you're a small firm, medium-sized firm, and you don't have a HR expert, then it helps to seek advice from people like us who are experts, because we do this on a day-to-day basis. We can have a sitting, get to understand where you're coming from, be able to advise you what will work best. Are there positions which are best for the short-term contracts, fixed-term contracts? Which one can you do permanent? And even how do you word the contract such that it meets the employee expectation and also the legal requirements, and it also covers you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for those tips and
Karibu
even
sana.
going deeper in what the law says.
Yes.
Yeah, and thank you for watching. As you've heard Paminas, corporate staffing is an expert in this area. We do offer this service, employment contract, and we have given more information in the link below in the description box. Please look at it. Reach out to us and we give you a free consultative meeting to understand your needs, and then we can customize our service to your needs. Thank you, and see you next time.